I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bigfoot, America's Creek Devil. I've had to re-upload a number of videos, older ones from the past shows. YouTube sent me messages saying that there was problem with them. So when you see those posted on Mondays, that's what those are. And last Monday, we had Carol in Missouri on. She's been on the show a couple of times. So a number of people have asked for updates from Carol and you know, ask about her well-being and everything. So Carol's with us today, and she's got some older things that she remembered that happened and some current stuff that's going on. So, Tom, I know you want to make an announcement first.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank everybody again for joining us and your patience while we fix and update the YouTube videos. And again, if you like the show, we love to hear about it. You guys are very important. If you're on YouTube, just click the like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you want to help us out, it's very, very much appreciated. On the YouTube channel, in the description, we have a link to Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can support the channel. But today we've got Carol, and she has some amazing updates that we don't want to miss. So that said, I'm going to hand it off.
Thanks, Tom. Quickly before we start, though, I want to mention for new listeners, if you're new to the channel, we have a number of shows that post throughout the week. Like I said, on Mondays, right now we're doing these older interviews that had to be fixed. So, and most of those are very good interviews. Tuesdays, we have Campfire Talk. That's where our panel sits around and we just kind of discuss whatever, sort of behind the scenes discussions that we have. Then on Wednesday, we have the Bigfoot and History shows. And the history is very important to this topic because you can see patterns that happened years ago, sometimes a century ago, to the things that are currently happening. And then on Thursdays, we have the Q&A. So having said all that, Carol, tell us what's going on in your area. I know there's been lots of stuff that has happened and, of course, current stuff going on.
Well, hi. It's nice to be here. It's nice to be invited. And I appreciate everybody's thoughts and prayers, and I really appreciate it. I want to let you know that as of last year in August, my brother and I actually won my mother's house. We took it to court, and we got her little house because I needed a place to live that would hopefully prevent me from having Bigfoot looking in my windows and slapping the house and all of this stuff. So I am much better off. I'm about 4 miles away because if you were to drive from this little town out to my property that I formerly was on, the 5 acres, it'd be about 5 miles because you got to drive around. No matter what direction you go, you've got to drive around someone's farm to get there. I found out these things like to pay visits, and I'm shocked to say that they haven't forgotten me, and they, I guess, were curious. I say they because I have no idea if it's different ones that are doing this, but at least one. They seem to know where my mom moved when my mom moved out. But I'll back up and say my mom and I shared property on 5 acres, and it had woods all the way around the piece of property, except across the front, and we had a mobile home close to the road on the front, on a gravel road. And so we got western light that way. But basically, our woods connects to other expanses of woods, and the things could just go many, many miles. One time my mom observed they could go all the way to Clinton from here in the woods and, you know, stay hidden. It'd be easy for them to do. And I can see that. It makes sense. They've got everything they want right there, apparently. They've got cover, they've got water, because I had a pond. They've got cattails to eat and every kind of tree with every kind of nut. We had a few fruit trees, past tense. They broke those down trying to get the fruit. They've eaten everything in sight. Used to be that property just was full of, you could walk along and see woodcock nests and squirrels galore, and you go out there now and there's nothing there but weeds and them, basically. I did sell my property. That was part of the move. I sold it to my poor nephew. I tried to tell my nephew before, when he asked about the property before, he had never been out there. And I told him, I said, there are some things that you need to know about, and they're really big things that you need to know about. He's always lived in the city. I know that where he lives is kind of rural, but I don't know if he's ever had this kind of thing to contend with. He kind of laughs. I don't think he really believes that they're real. He won't come out, you know, he's respectful about it, but he won't come right out and tell me I'm cuckoo or whatever. But for right now, he's just making plans for the property, and I'm praying that he doesn't do what he said. He said at one point that he thought he would fix the mobile home up and he would move his mother there. Well, his mother, I don't think she could stand it out there either. She'd die if she got a tick on her, I think. I love her to death, but I don't think she's the one to live out there like we did. I don't think that's going to work out either. In fact, I would fear for her safety, because I have a neighbor out there that still is out there that was knocked to the ground out by her garden area one night, and none of us really had very much lighting there. She did have a little pole light, but this was in the daytime. She got knocked down next to the neighbor fencing, and this would be right across from my front door. I didn't see it happen, but I did visit her when she got home after the ordeal. She said something enormous knocked her down from behind, and she was attacked. I think I had mentioned this to Will before, but she about lost her life. She confided to me that the thing that she saw had kind of a pointed head. It had no muzzle sticking out, so it wasn't a dog. It wasn't anything she could recognize. It wasn't a bear. She said whatever this was just seemed to effortlessly drop her to the ground from behind. And right there where that happened at, there are not any trees. It's just very tall grass. She was growing blue stem for one of the neighbors that wanted to make hay of it, you know. And I had seen the male Bigfoot out there in that grass before. And to see one do that, creep along in the grass, I think I've heard that's where the name Grass Man comes from. But here in Missouri, they're supposed to be called momos. Missouri is short for Missouri Monster. But I had seen this thing one time a few years before that, where I opened the front door very quietly to look out to see what kind of wildlife I could see, because, you know, we had bobcats and foxes, and I thought it was really nice. I enjoyed it. So I opened the door slowly one morning, and there was the back of this thing, black, just above the heads of the blue stem. And it looked like an enormous hairy spider crawling, and I'm talking enormous, not like you normally see a spider size. This looked like something out of your nightmares. As big and long as a bed, crawling through the grass. So I had told my mother that I had enough and that we needed to move, and she agreed to that. So in 2017, she got a little house, and not too far away. And I was trying to clear out the accumulation that we had there and trying to put that place on the market and get rid of it. All the while, torn up inside because I wondered who was going to get that property, and if they had kids, that it wouldn't be safe. And the things at the property had begun over the 20 years that we lived there. It didn't take very long when we first moved there to realize that something was really off. And it didn't take long to first we began hearing the howls at night. And we had heard them when we were camping in South Missouri when I was a kid. We had heard those same kind of howls, and we saw one in camp. It just came right out into our camp, into our firelight one night when my mom and I were there alone. And so we had seen this before. We had seen that kind of thing before. I had fixed dinner for Mom one night before we finally got things together enough for my mother to move. I wanted her out of there because they had begun to attack her. The only thing I can figure is they were trying to get her lunch, because she always carried her lunch on the left arm, and she would carry her purse on the right, and she had things that she had to take to work with her. And so she would go out the door, and she had to leave to get to Kansas City. She had to leave between 3 and 4 in the morning in order to make the drive to get there for work. And her being up in years, I would try to get up and be at the door. And on the mornings that I was at the door and trying to make the trip light for her so she could get to the car, nothing would happen. But then on mornings that she let me sleep or I didn't wake up, something would hit her from behind and knock her winding. And it would knock her so hard that it would knock her through the skirting on the trailer. She broke both rotator cuffs in a series of being knocked down like that. And I asked her at the time, I said, "Are you tripping? How is this? Because you're always falling off to the right." She said, "Well, something's hitting me from the left." And she couldn't figure it out. It was very cunning, very smooth. She didn't hear much of anything happen. It's not like she heard feet running up on her or anything. And so, as I said, when I was there in the mornings to see her off, nothing happened. One morning she had her lunch and was carrying that. And this time she felt something snatch it off of her arm and shove her down. And I heard her cry. That woke me up. And I came outside and found her there like that. It's a pitiful, pitiful thing to know that, you can't even go to your car in the morning, that you're a target. And it had us both really, really terrified. I later found her nylon bag that she carried her lunch in, and it had zippers on it. And something was not able to work the zippers. Something you would think, if this were a homeless person or something, that they would just unzip the bag and get into the bag and get the food. But instead, this had been literally torn apart at the seams, and shredded it, and had eaten all the food inside. And I found what was left of the wrappings of her food. The next thing that happened that really scared me, it was my turn to get a good scare then. I got shoved down in my garden one day. I had my face down close to the soil, and I was digging something up, trying to expand my flower bed out front, and something hit me from behind. Something came from the east and hit me, but it wasn't a big rock or a club or anything like that, thank goodness. But something came up and it felt like a hand or a foot would feel across my backside, and just plain drove me into the garden. I was sunk in the garden up to my shoulders in the worked soil in my garden. I heard kind of a laughing cry from the distance in the trees. I just had no idea what it would be except one of them, because naturally I got up, got the mud out of my mouth, and looked around, and there wasn't a soul around. I mean, no matter where someone parked, I could have seen them. It wasn't like I was in the, out in the total wasteland in the wilderness. It wasn't like that. If someone would have been around there, I would have seen a car from either direction. Never did see a car. Never did trace down what was happening to Mom, except something wanted her lunch. She started working right before the very end, before she retired, and she was well past retirement age when she did retire. She would come home sometimes after working double shift. She would leave at between 3 and 4 in the morning, and she wouldn't get home till after 9 at night by the time she made the long drive. And she loved her job. I had supper ready for her, and she got there, and I ushered her in, went out with a flashlight to get her, and brought her inside. And I told her, I said, supper's ready. I've been holding it, and I've already eaten. Go ahead and eat. And so she got in her head that I had to take the trash out right then. And I had peeled cantaloupe and so forth, and I tied it up with a knot. And I told her no. I said, I'm not taking the trash out right now. But she was insistent that she was going to do it. If I didn't, she was going to do it. And I said, well, I take compost, add to the compost, which was one of my, now that I think about it, it's one of my aside things to say to you is I was putting food into a compost pile, and something was coming at night and taking everything out that was edible. And it was more than just raccoons and possums. It was leaving huge handprints. I mean, it looked like Shaquille O'Neal had been digging through my compost, and, the size of the handprints and so forth. So we had a major problem, and I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to stop it, and I didn't know what to do, because these things are very vocal and showed their anger when we had the trash dumpster removed. My mom was bringing home food from the trashes of 2 churches when they had dinners and so forth, or cleaned out the refrigerator. There was a lot of food waste there at times, not every time, but a lot of times, yes. And, just like any animal that I ever heard of, they're attracted, even if there's really nothing much there to eat, just chicken bones and watermelon rinds or something. That's going to attract an animal to see if there is much there to eat. It's still going to smell like food. So she was bringing that trash home for a few years and putting it in our dumpster, and our dumpster didn't have any lid on it, which wouldn't have been a problem if it had a lid. Nothing seemed to stop them. I could put concrete blocks, pile blocks up on my trash cans and around them, and I tried to build things to keep something out, and it was no problem at all for them to just lift the whole frame off of it and give it a toss to the side and then get in the trash can. So we still had the dumpster at this time. Back to our struggling over who was going to take the trash out. I told her, I said, I had some empty canned goods, and I took some canned goods that were way out of date, and I had those in the trash, and I had them tied up. And so I won the argument over who was going to go out that night and put the trash outside. And I sure didn't want her doing it. And so I told her to stand at the door and flip the light for me so that I could see But, you know, the dumpster being far enough away from the mobile home south of there near the property line, it's at least 20 feet, 20 to 30 feet, depending on where they dropped it when they emptied it. But they had emptied it. It was empty. So I took my trash and got to the road, and there was a little moonlight, and with gravel being whitish, I could see the road. So I walked down to it, and I thought, I'll get this done, and I'll give it a pitch, and I didn't really want to get close to the dumpster. And we had a stand of tall weeds. We had like 9-foot tall cane, and I hadn't been able to cut it down because of the thickness of the stalks, because these stalks were like the handle of a baseball bat. They were pretty thick. And so I didn't know that something was standing in there right next to the dumpster. So I came up on my side of the dumpster from the west, and this thing was standing up at it, maybe even touching the dumpster on the more eastern side of the dumpster. So when I came up, I got freaked out. I've mentioned before that I don't know if researchers get this sense, but I've gotten this kind of sense that when I don't even have to be thinking about them. I either smell them or I sense. I feel like I'm watched or something. I got pretty good at telling when they were around. Not always, but I mean, it's not foolproof, but there's just something about me. My hackles go up, and I sense that they're around. And whether I can prove it or not, I usually got myself to a safe position when I felt like that. Had smelled one earlier in the day, and that had my senses going in the first place. Well, I got to the dumpster and I threw it underhand because it was small, but it was quite heavy. So I threw it underhand. It went up in the air and it came down. Boom! It hit the wall of the dumpster, and the dumpster being empty is just like sounded like a big bell. And when that boom noise happened from the dumpster, I heard this thing let out a startled gasp. And, I mean, it was close enough to me, just being on the other side of the dumpster, that if it had really wanted me, I suppose it would have had me. Thank God it turned and it ran down the property. And I could see it in the moonlight. It was every bit of between 8 and 9 feet tall, which I think I know which one it was, because the one I call Mo, not out of love, but out of describing which one it was that I saw. I started calling them by different names. Kind of flaky, I know, but it kind of helped me keep track of which one and maybe how many. I was trying to find out how many there were. I had gotten up to four names. When this thing got startled, it bolted, and I could hear its feet. It was running on 2 feet, definitely, and shook the earth. Like the biggest farm animal I've ever heard in my life, or maybe something you would see in a zoo taking off at a run. Boom, 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 boom. When it came to the fence back there, the fence has got wisteria. It's all overgrown. It's a 6-foot fence, and it's got wisteria grown on it, and then it's got other plantings in front of it. It had lilacs and Rosa Sharon. It just jumped and cleared that. I mean, it just sailed right over it. It has knees bent. It just sailed right over that. And then I heard it land in the far pasture behind all of that vegetation, and it was gone. Well, I turned and briskly walked myself back up to the mobile home and came inside. And Mom saw my expression, and she said, "What happened to you?" And I said, you don't know? And she said, "Did you see something?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, what?" And I said, "Mom, you know what lives here. You know what lives here, honey." And she said, well, you should have let me take the trash out. And to her, it was just an issue of who took it out. I wasn't about to let her go out there because these things seemed to have it in for her. I mean, they threw sticks at her when she mowed, and they're good. They hit their mark. And I didn't want to be out there. God knew I didn't want to be out there alone, but somebody had to clear this place out so we could get our things that really mattered and try to sell it as is and get out of there. That was the final straw for me, because one of them soon after that came into the home with us the night that I was sleeping on the floor and we were sharing a fan. That freaked both of us out. The idea that it would come in the home. And then I've got one other thing, if you want to know, that I will tell you about.
Sure.
The last time I stayed out there, okay, thank you. The last time I stayed out there, this really got me. I got a ride. I'm disabled and I don't drive. I got a ride from a friend, and I asked him to take me back out there because I was trying to move my things, and the government gave me only so many days to move my things, and I don't drive, so I was trying to get as much as I could get together, so when someone picked me up, I would ask them beforehand, can I bring some bags of items? I've got, household items, whatever, that I needed at the other house. And as I said, it was a period of time before we finished probate. She died in November of 2020, and we didn't get her house until August of 22. And so I'd had one really bad experience where I felt like I had to walk it. I couldn't get a ride, and my electricity was down. It's not that the bill wasn't paid; it's that my electricity was shot. These things and probably other animals had gotten underneath my trailer and had torn all the insulation out and had torn the electrical cable out from underneath my mobile home. And I didn't have a way to charge my phone. Sometimes I had to be real stingy with it. I had battery-operated radio and stuff, but for my phone, I got one of those portable battery-operated things. I would charge it when I was at Mom's house working, and then I would take it with me. And I managed to not have my phone charged. And I had gotten dropped off out there. And fortunately, I didn't have to walk it, because it's a very, very long walk, especially when you're walking alone and your daylight's giving out on you, and you know that you've got to try to get there and get in before it gets dark. I'm not afraid of the dark, but I'm afraid of what lurks in the dark. So I was out there, and I had worked myself into a tizzy, how much stuff there is to do when you move. And I was still trying to get things for my mother that my mother had, and trying to get things that really mattered to her, family things. And I decided I got my cot out, and I changed up bedrooms. They knew that I slept in the end bedroom on the south end, and they'd give me a hard time. So I moved to the other small bedroom, the smallest bedroom, 3-bedroom mobile home. So I got my radio going because I didn't want to think about them. I just wanted to relax. And I got my radio going. I had a battery-operated fan, and they're pretty cool. I got to tell you, they're pretty good. If it's hot, you've got to have something. It's better than nothing. And I went to bed in the cot, and along about 3 o'clock in the morning, I could hear this thing outside, but I had no idea how big it was. And I had turned the radio down and had fallen asleep with it barely running. And I kind of congested, and I snorted through my nose and woke myself up. And apparently the thing outside heard the snort as well. And it was the bedroom I had was the one I had taken. It wasn't on the very end. It was toward the middle of the house. next to the front door, and divided by a living room wall. So you walked into the trailer right into a vaulted ceiling living room, and then there was a little bedroom on the right of it. And that's the one that I decided to take because, honestly, I thought that if I were in there and something were able to get the door open, that I could get in through a closet into the furnace cubby hole. And I thought maybe that I could, I don't know what I was thinking. When something is that powerful, what do you think? I had gone to bed knowing that I had the two doors lashed together with chains. I took the outer door, which, swung outward, the glass storm door, and I took the inner door, which wasn't all that much because on a mobile home, it's vinyl. It's toothpicks and vinyl, basically. And I had my door completely knocked off the hinges a few times. Didn't see that happen, but nothing in the home was taken, but the door was knocked off the hinges. You can hit those doors hard enough that they'll just bow. They're vinyl and they'll just flex. And I figured that it hit the door hard enough that it just flexed it right off the hinges. So someone had come and helped me put metal brackets on the corners of the doors on both sides, and we had the door back up. I had the two doors lashed together. You couldn't pull the storm door out, and you couldn't hopefully push the inner door in. So after I snorted, I heard the thing outside to the east of the trailer, outside of the living room window, which I had the window cracked open. It was hot. Man, was it hotter than tamales in there. And I heard it took off, and I heard each step. It went about 7 steps, pound, 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 and it was already to the south end of the trailer, 4 steps, and it was already that far. It would take me many, many steps to get from the living room window to the end of the trailer. So pound, 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 and there it was on the door. And it roared, and it grabbed the door, and it shook the door. The whole wall of the trailer shook with it. And I was wondering, is this old trailer enough? Is it going to hold? Is it determined to get me? Is it determined to get me, or is it curious about what's inside? What is it? And I tell you what, that scared me so bad. It did go away, but it shook the door. It shook the door. It let me know that it knew where I was coming and going at. It could either smell me or something. And I told my mom, I said, "Oh, honey, you cannot live out here. You cannot. We cannot continue this sort of thing." Between those two things that happened, the one about it standing next to the dumpster happened before she looked at the house, and the other one happened after she had passed. And both times, I had told my family, I told anyone that would listen, please, told my cousins, please, dear God, something's got to give. I told the people with Social Security what I was having to live with, knowing that they probably thought I was crazy, and they would just say, "You're not suicidal, are you?" And I used to think, dear God, something's going to happen to me. I had one person at Social Security in Sedalia, the chief mucky muck over there. I won't say his name, but he talked to me about it. He said, "Do you think it's a bear?" And I said, "No, I don't think it's a bear. I don't think a bear in its right mind would live on my property. It's as big as a bear." And he just said, "Well, be quiet and don't say anything about this." And I thought, dear God, he's asking me to stay here and risk my life. This was because I knew what happened to the neighbor, and I had seen her body after this happened to her. Something was eating her intestines. Something had her down and was eating her intestines, just split her open with ease and was eating her intestines. It was a clean mark. This wasn't done with teeth. I'd seen that, and I'd heard stories about the woman that lived there before, and that she would just plain disappeared. And the old people that I got to know at church, they all knew her, and they said, "We don't know what happened to her. She just disappeared." she had been telling different ones at church that were her age that there was something getting her chickens and getting her goats and all of that sort of stuff. So as far as her family, she had a son that I don't know what all happened there, but I believe she did live there alone the whole time she lived there. Anyway, I'm not very far away because my mom wanted to be close and convenient. She knew the little town. She felt comfortable putting around in her car in town, and it made it easier trying to move and all of that. If at the very last, she had dementia, and she left me out there for 2 weeks one time. My phone wouldn't take a charge. The lights wouldn't come on at night. I had friends bring me battery-operated lanterns and things like this to be able to stay out there, but I didn't have any refrigeration. My pipes were burst. I was in a mess. I was eating cold SpaghettiOs out of a can. So I appreciate everyone that heard my story, that prayed for me, because I'm still here to tell the story. I tell you the truth, though. I thought that they would have forgotten about me by now, those creatures. I thought, thank God I'm in a safer place and they've forgotten about me, that they have checked on me or whatever it is they're doing. I don't know what they're getting out of this. I'd really like to hear what you all think about this, because I'm not feeding them. I don't have any compost. I don't compost anymore. I'm in town, sandwiched between houses. I've got a flow of traffic right in front of the house. And it's not my imagination. They come into the yard when the pecans are dropping off the trees. They come, I say they. It's probably just one, because I find tracks for one when it happens. But they're emboldened to enter a human construct. That is the thing that really scares me, because twice now something has gotten into my garage. The door, they never had doors on this garage. It was kind of like a glorified shed. In fact, you really probably couldn't find a car with a low enough clearance to drive inside that building. So my mom just put everything she couldn't bear to throw away that really needed to be. At one time, I was putting bags of clothing there so we could bring bedding and clothing into the house and wash it, but she got very sick at the last, and we didn't get to do, she had to go to a nursing home. We didn't get to do the things that we intended to do. But I brought her potted plants and yard ornaments and the whole thing. She would come and get me, and I would load some things up in the car, and we'd take them back to the house. And you talk about being worn out and beside myself, because when I realized they were coming into town, that town, being in town, didn't stop them. You talk about being freaked out. I felt like I could move to the other side of the moon and they'd find me. Now, I'm being facetious, obviously, but I thought, how far do I have to go to get away from these things? They were coming into the yard at first, and they were peeing on the car, on my mom's car. They'd pee on they're tall enough, they can pee right on your window glass on either side of the car, on the driver's and passenger's side. They'd pee on the glass, and it would run down into the door and seep in a little bit, and then run down across the door handles on both sides. They would pee on it, and they would mark it. And the only thing we could figure out about that is that it smelled like our hands. It had our scent on it at all times. Obviously, we're using the car. So it was peeing on the car, whether the car was out there with me in the country or the car was parked in Mom's driveway at night. It would get peed on from time to time. They came in the yard and they got maple buds. They would pull maple branches off very high, higher than somebody would. Why would somebody get a step ladder out here in the dark and get up into the tree, 11 feet off the ground or so, and pull branches? The buds would be stripped off of the branches. They would look like they were clipped off with a nail clipper or something, and then the branch itself would be devoid of buds. These kind of things have still continued to go on. They've been here 4 times this year already that I know of, and I'm using the bleach. In fact, I'm misusing the bleach. I got frightened and I sprayed the house with bleach. I've got the people that live behind me have installed lights. Something was getting into their trash, and I know what it was one night at least, because I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it crouched up against their house. Is yellow. It's hard to miss. This thing was crouched up against their house next to their patio. They'd had a barbecue, and they just the kids just drop and throw the bones around, instead of hitting the trash can, they just kind of throw it over their shoulder when they eat, kids. This thing was on its hands and knees next to their porch out back, which faces my back deck, and I could see it. It was raining. It seems like they come when the weather is very overcast and it's dark and there's not much moonlight. They come during storms. The times that they have been here, that it's been no doubt that they were here, they've come during storms. Like I said, they've entered the garage twice. I say it's probably one. I really doubt that the females are coming into town. It seems to be the work of either the main male that I was aware of, or the one that I say it's his son. It's more the color of the mother. It's not black like he is. It's auburn brown like the mother. Well, the female that I saw was as big as a tank, and she was the color of a Jersey cow. Her hair was that color. And the 2 progeny that I have seen, the male is, both of them are grown. They're grown now, but when they were small, when I first began to see the little female, she was quite small. I saw her when I got to thinking about it, that was the year I had to have surgery. So that was 2007 is when I first saw her. And I saw her from the knees down, standing next to the mother. I looked out the window and saw them standing there, but the upper part of the window was covered. Knowing they're out there, I only had the very bottom of the window open to get a little bit of air flow through my bedroom. What I saw out there looked just like a child's legs. I saw her from the mid-thigh down, the adult. I just saw the lower portion of the leg. That's how much disparity there was in size. The little one was standing there facing the trailer, and so was the adult, the color that it was, that's the female. They were watching my window, my bedroom window. And this was by daytime, so I had a good look at them. I don't know what else I can go into, but I'm telling you, I know that I still sound like I'm scared to death. There are times that I'm scared to death, but it doesn't keep me out of my yard. I like to go out in the yard and garden and keep up Mom's flower pots and grow a few things to eat here and there, tomato in a pot or whatever like that. But I've noticed that my neighbors on the south side of me have put up all new lights. They've got string lights all the way across their front of their home. Like I said, the ones at the back there where I actually saw one, they keep a dumpster all the time, and I think that's part of the draw. They do put food refuse in it. And, their kitchen waste. There's a little restaurant by here very close, and it is very close to a system of gullies that comes up from the park. And I have walked that park and taken pictures of the gully. But they've, in recent year, I'd say over the past year, they've done a lot of work to that gully and backfilled it and tried to channel it and make it more hospitable for the kids that came and play on the property, for the park. That's their town ballpark, and they also have they've put in rides and things for the kids to do there. But it's very close to a very brushy area, and I believe that brushy area there south of the park is the way that they're coming in.
Yeah, they use that concealment.
They can be completely concealed there. Yes.
I know.
And then the houses there along that gully, they keep animals tethered and stuff in the past, and I noticed they don't keep their animals tethered out back anymore.
Oh, no, that's interesting. I'm sure everyone has questions.
People that have the goats. Go ahead. I'm wound up.
All right, everyone. Forrest, everybody, I know there's questions out there. I can hear them. Is everyone on mute?
I don't know.
No, well, I was. I had to take it off. Does this sound familiar, Tom and Will?
Very much so.
It does.
I was texting Tom. I said, right in the very beginning, Carol, I think in the first 5 minutes we were talking, I could tick off in my mind at least 3 other cases where we had exactly the same kinds of things happening.
Oh, my. Well, I've learned these things by School of the Hard Knocks, and I don't recommend anybody go there. The diploma stinks. I'm telling you, I'm laughing, but I've got a cousin that's seen one of these things when he was going to school down closer to the Ozarks, and he saw one of these things crossing the road at night. And he doesn't laugh at me, so I have a confidant there that I can share with. But I tell you what, some of the things that I hear on some programs just absolutely floors me, and I've got to laugh because I listen to other stories that people share because, I oftentimes can relate, and I can think to myself, I'll hear someone say something, and I'll think, not in my experience. It's not that way in my experience. But, like one time I heard a guy sharing that he probably meant well. He said that he saved up all of his dirty socks and took clothespins and went around the yard and put his dirty socks on every bush and every tree. So that and I thought, why? And he goes, because that'll keep them away. And I'm like, no, it won't.
Well, in principle, he's got the right idea, but you need something stronger than their smell, and that's why we use bleach. And we're talking about sulfur also. We need to kind of test that and check the smell, see how strong it is compared to bleach.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not afraid to use it. I will do what I need to do, but this time maybe not spray it in my house. I get sick of them hitting. They slap the,
right.
I sent you some pictures. They slap, and I finally figured it out. I think I figured it out. In this, I call it a game, is a deadly game maybe, but it is where they hitting the house at. Okay, that's right next to where the toilet stool is in the house. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I try to keep my toilet still clean. I surely my house doesn't smell that bad, But anyway, they must have a pretty good sense of smell, and I was thinking about it. How do they know that's right outside of the toilet? And of course, I was
Please continue to hold.
Uh-oh. I don't know what that was.
I don't know because I'm not trying to buy anything online or anything. I don't know what it is. But these things come up, from what I can understand, they're crawling that gully, and they're able to. I really, honestly, in my heart of hearts, I think that they check out the ball field in summer when people sit in there and they practice. They have all the school ball practices and everything on that field, and people eat. Someone's always walking across the street to the restaurant and getting food and eating, and it's always the scent is there. And I think that they go and check out underneath the bleachers and underneath the picnic tables for scraps of food that might be there. a lot of creatures will do that.
Sure,
And
wherever
there's nothing
trash
too
is.
remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing too remarkable about that, but they keep having their trash getting scattered all over the place over there, and it scares the water out of me to know that they went as close to the brush back there around that gully, and they put all the shiny new equipment for little kids, the little baby swings and the whole 9 yards, and they got them right there. I mean, a stone's throw away from all of this grown-up. You can't see through it. I mean, it's an impenetrable tangle of briars and brush and trees. And I have a hunch that may be one of the ways they're coming into town. I think they checked the grease traps at the restaurant. And then the way that they seem to be coming to the house here, because I'm telling you what, you all would be proud of me. I've got this yard looking like somebody used a skull shaver on it. I've got nowhere for them to hide.
It makes a difference. Hey, I got a question for you. I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I couldn't remember the lady who saw when she woke up and saw the creature eating her own intestines. How was it that she got away from that creature? I couldn't remember.
Yes, she had already talked to the neighbor. There was a person that bought the property on the corner, a man that she knew from a previous place she had lived, and he had a big dog. And he had already made an agreement with her that he would come down that day. And as I said, she was growing all around her house. She had every bit of the property. She got like 20-something acres there. And everything that was visible from the road was in blue stem. And then she had a little garden area there. She had a dog run, but she could never keep a dog. She always kept a big, mean dog in there. She'd come home with the meanest, ugliest dogs you ever saw in your life, and she couldn't keep them. She kept saying that they wouldn't bark or something killed one of them. Every time I turned around, she just couldn't keep a dog there. And her dog run was next to the driveway, and then she had a shed and a garden patch, and the next fence to this man's property, her friend's property, was south of her. But that fence that divided their property was directly in line with my front door. Okay, that is where she got attacked. And the way that she survived it was, she told me that she came to while she was on the ground, and this thing was hunched over her, and it was chewing a mouthful of, it had an intestine hanging out of its mouth, and it was chewing her intestine, and then she passed out again. She said it was hanging out of its mouth. She said it turned its face toward her, and she said she had no idea, still has no idea what that was. She said it had kind of a sloped head, no muzzle sticking out. She said it was absolutely enormous. And this man was supposed to come and talk with her. I don't know what about, private, but he was supposed to come, and he opened the door, and he told me that his dog took off like a streak. And he couldn't keep up with her. She was familiar with the property, and she had ways to get through the horse pen, because he kept a couple of horses. The dog got there before he did, and when he got there, he found her in that condition and called for help. And that was how she survived that. And she was in the hospital for some time. She told me, and maybe I shouldn't be telling this, but I feel like people's safety is the main concern. Would never share who she is, etc. All of that is confidential with me. But I'm here to tell you that when she showed me what she was left with, she doesn't have a navel. I mean, something just gutted her like a fish. Started up between her ribs and just went all the way down. And, of course, there was a lot of, side scarring and stuff like this. But I'm telling you, that woman would have died if she had not already had it arranged for him to come walking over. and talk with her, she wouldn't have survived that. That's a God thing to me that she even survived it. I don't know where I was that day. I didn't see it happen. This was before we had our minds made up to move. My mother didn't want to have to move everything, and I understand that. And in her condition, it really was more than she could bear to even think about. But I think at the very last, she just liked being at work. It was comfortable to her, and, she really wasn't thinking straight at the very last. I kind of brought the subject up a few times because I kept saying, Mom, this is not safe. What if something happens to one of us? And I was mainly thinking, if one of us is going to be out here alone. And she didn't, flinch at it. After she got her retirement pay, she said, we're out of here. But then I couldn't move with her because of my situation, getting disability. You can't just up and move. You have to sell your property. The government has to know all about it. They have to approve how much you sell it for. And I was thinking, wild thoughts like, oh my God, I'm going to die out here. Something's going to realize that it's strong enough to break through. And it was already to the point where I couldn't keep the water pipes and the heat and the electricity. It was going to cost me, I got one estimate of around $5,000, and that wouldn't even cover we needed a new septic slough and all of that stuff. And not only that, but I know you all understand, for me to be out there alone trying to cut that yard, and I really didn't have the wherewithal or the equipment to do the job. I was just keeping the little area around the mobile home cleared off, and that meant they had the whole thing to themselves. I would smell carcasses. I'd get a ride into town to go to an appointment or something, and they would drop me off, and I would smell carcasses. There would be, vultures sitting on the top of the trailer and around. That was because they kept carcasses back there all the time to feed on the carcasses. And then my neighbor, even after what happened to her, she just couldn't get her head around it. She asked me, well, why don't you go back there and see what carcass it is? And I said, are you kidding? Are you kidding? One time she called me, because naturally she was afraid after this happened to her, but they told her at the hospital it was a very big dog. And her description, it just doesn't all match up. She said that she saw something come out of the woods there on my property line was in front of her house. That would be my former property line to my north was in front of her house, and she could look out. And she said in the very, very early morning, she used to sit on her front porch and look out. Her property was higher ground. She would look out across my property, and she began to see things. And she told me, she said, what are you keeping back there? I said, I've got nothing. She said, what kind of an animal? And I said, I don't have anything. She said, big and black? And I said, no, honey, I don't have any animals. When we first moved there, the man that had lived there before, he was really eager to get out, and he didn't take two of his horses with him. And one of those horses, we found that horse on its back, like I said, kind of like she was, flayed open, and something had eaten its organs. I always thought it was weird that nothing else came to feed on the carcass of that. But I mean, that was when before we really fully moved in there, we were still living in Kansas City, and we'd come down on the weekends and try to mow and so forth like this. So, I tried to put in, implement all the things that I found out, and your suggestions helped a lot. First thing I did, as soon as I got Mom settled, I called the power company, and I had them come out and put a pole light, which is probably between 10 and 12 feet from the mobile home. So it lit the inside of the mobile home up at night, so that it actually helped me. I didn't have my power restored yet, you know how it is, $400 for getting the cable reconnected, $300 to dig the thing up to prove that there's power there in the first place, on and on. It cost me over $3,000 to have some trees cut out, but I wanted all of that cut away from the home. I didn't want places where they could hide. You can still go there today. I was showing my nephew. You can still look out there, and there are places in the fence where the young female drags her foot. When she walks, she drags the left foot still. And she just stomped down the fencing. Instead of stepping over it, she just stomped down the fencing so she could pass. I mean, it looks like a water buffalo came through there. So I don't have anything else to blame that on. I mean, he asked me about hunting deer out there, and I told him and my brother. My brother has seen these creatures in Arkansas where he lives. My brother told me, he said, as soon as I get out my pistol or whatever, they'll run. And I said, don't bank on it. Don't bank on it. I said, you would need an elephant gun, whatever that looks like. You would need that. You would really need to know what you're doing. He goes, well, you know, I'm an ex-Marine. And I said, yeah, I understand that, Dan, but please don't even entertain trying to come out here in the dark and do what you need to do to hunt. I know you think you know the woods, and you do, and I know that you do. But for the love of Mike, don't go out there. Don't do this yet. So they've not gotten very far on it. Their next plan is they've bought a tractor, and they plan to just take all the brush and trees out of the two pastures. And they might get that done successfully. I don't know how that could go. But I know what happened when the tree crew came out. When I hired the tree crew to come, I had some saplings growing up against the house and stuff, and they really, when I say house, mobile home, those things needed to go. And so I had cut what I could, you know, and there's just more there than what I could handle. So I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and bite the bullet and pay for this and have it done, have it cleared out. They'll get rid of it for me, and it will be a group of men. So they assured me it was a group of men that would come out. And I had I was working with a realtor at the time. I asked the realtor, would you come and pick me up early, really super early, so I can sign some documents for you? And she said, yes. Well, it was a little bit later, and she came to get me, and unbeknownst to me, the crew came out to do the tree job. This was January of 21 when this happened. It was a beautiful day. I mean, shirt sleeve weather, which is unusual for Missouri, but they called me, and the guy he acted a little bit shook up, and he said, you're not at home. And he said, we're just about ready to wrap this up. And I said, oh my. I said, I'm in town. I came into town to run off some documents and to sign some things, and I'm with the realtor in town. So they knew the person. They said, okay. And she said, well, I'll take you as soon as I get my call. I'm waiting on a call. So then that kind of delayed things. Well, when we got out there, it was she and I. We pulled up outside of my mobile home. Everybody that came there to work on it, these men were standing in my neighbor's driveway across the road. And they were all over there facing the back of my property and kind of standing off by where my old driveway was on the be to the north end of the mobile home. They were all looking that way. And two of them came up to me very excitedly and said, don't get out of the car like this. And I said, what's the matter? I recognized them as the owners. And I said, it looks really nice, fellas. I can tell you that you've been busy. I said, I'm sorry I was gone like that. They said, no, just talk to us here. And then they realized I was with the other person. And they said, well, we can't say what we have to say in front of her. So I thought, well, why not? In the first place, I've already told my real estate agent to have me with her anytime she came out there because, I don't think she quite believed me, but she knew I wasn't a liar. She couldn't figure out what I was seeing. But I told her, I said, anytime you come to show somebody, have me with you. I want to be with you when if you decide you're going to walk them around, I want to be there. I don't want anything to happen. So she waited in the car. They took me around to the back of the property there on the south end. I said, what's the matter? I mean, their faces were. One guy looked like he'd hit the lottery. He was so excited. I mean, he was beside himself. He just was like he had seen, the ocean parted or something. The other guy, he was pale, and he looked like he was about to throw up. And I said, what happened? And this one said, you didn't tell us. And I said, well, tell you what? And he said, something is out here in the brush, and it's huge. And the other guy said, the excited one said, yeah, and it's not a bear. And I said, have you had a problem? And they said, have we had a problem? We got busy going when we got the chippers going and everything. This thing just let loose. I said, is anyone hurt? And they said, no. The guy that looked like he was going to throw up, he said, I saw it first. He said, I said, how many? And they went, how many? I said, how many animals did you see? And he said, oh, you know what this is? And the other guy said, well, yeah, you see programs about that, but I never thought I'd see one. And I said, well, did you see one? And they went, well, is there more than one? And I said, I'm sorry that you had problems. I really am. I'm upset about it. I wouldn't have asked you to do, but I figured being several men, you said you had a crew. They said, yeah, we got out of here. The thing began to have a fit and break limbs and stuff like that. So we got it. We pulled our guys out. They were pretty excited. And I went back to the car and to get my purse to get the check. And they said, don't say anything in front of her. And I said, no. I said, you know her. Oh, yeah, we know her. And I said, well, she knows my problem. She does. And I said, yeah, she's known for some time. And they said, oh, man. And I was hoping, I reached out to them the other day. I was hoping that they might contact you, and they may yet. I don't know. My nephew and my brother joint own. My nephew bought the property, but my brother joint owns it with him. And my brother knows they're real, but he has a Native American friend, and they've put their heads together and they've decided these are spiritual creatures, and that they can vanish and disappear, and that they're not physical, that they can't really hurt you. And I told my brother, and I said, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you the truth. That's not completely, I'm sorry. I'm not going to discount what he believes. He's entitled to what he believes. But these people that want to tell you that they just want to communicate with you, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. I don't know if all of them are as aggressive as these have become. I can't speak to that. I don't know. But when I hear someone say that they pray to these beings, or I hear someone say that they fly through outer space, okay, everyone's entitled to their take on this. And no, I don't know what these things are, but they're definitely flesh and blood that eat everything in sight. And I do not doubt that in the right situation, I've heard that they don't attack people, but I'm here to say that I know of at least two that have, one has disappeared with no explanation after having problems with these creatures, and the other one almost died from it, got her intestines chewed up. I mean, they patched her up what was left. I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to be a fool sitting out in the woods playing the pipe and offering up food to these things. I've tried to do everything I can to make it inhospitable for those things to come around. I don't want them to come around. I don't need their I don't need all of this drama. I'd like to live out the rest of my life with a lot less stress in that department. I mean,
yeah, it's not a,
that's like living with grizzly bears on your property.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. We're running a little short of time. Everyone, you got any comment or questions for Carol or comments or anything? We got a little time for that, but now's your chance if you want to dive in there.
I'm going to jump in. Carol, thank you so much. This is a fascinating update. Some of the backstory stuff we haven't heard before and the new stuff. So keep us updated. Stay in touch. And I'm sure you will. And don't become a stranger.
Okay. I appreciate that, Tom. I really do.
Forrest, DW?
I so do.
Chuck? Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, you guys know who I am. I'm very sympathetic towards the situation because, Carol, I'll tell you what, I'm kind of going through the same situation. And Tom was even on the phone with me. What night was it, Tom? Thursday? Was it Thursday night, Jessica?
Yeah.
Thursday
I think
night.
it was. Yeah. Crazy.
And he was listening to all of it, and so they got me alarms, and I put on my door, and I won't get into that and interrupt your story, but it's just the whole thing has just become very peculiar, and I don't know what the fascination. They're trying to get into my house now, so why? We don't know why. So I don't understand. So it's weird.
Well, Forrest, I gave up cooking completely. The last couple of years that I was there, I gave up cooking completely because I felt anything that I was doing with food, I would even wrap up, I was eating out of cans and eating shelf-stable food. I kept shelf-stable stable food there for myself, such as, boxed milk and crackers and things like this. And I was absolutely terrified to even cook out there. The idea of someone getting together and going out there and having a weenie roast out, a bunch of young people or something, that absolutely terrifies me for them.
Well, I haven't quit cooking, but I'm not so sure that there's plenty of food and wildlife around here for them to eat. I am not totally convinced that that's their motive. So, but you know what? Tom and I discussed this the other night. It's not really. We're not really sure what the motive is. It's just it's peculiar. But I did want to say that the fact that something might have been feeding on that woman while she was alive. Now that is a very chimpanzee thing. They hunt, and we've discussed this before. They hunt, and they will literally start ripping things apart while it's still alive. They don't kill it and then start eating it. They just start ripping things apart, and that is very atypical chimpanzee behavior. And I have said over and over and over, these things act way too much like chimps, and they're almost like a combination of chimpanzee and human behavior.
That's what I've thought before. I didn't study it like you have, but it has occurred to me before that that's kind of where I'm at on my thinking too, because I can't put them in any other category. The way that they look and the way that they walk and behave. When people try to tell me, "Oh, you saw a bear," there is no comparison. I mean, these things they have absolute glide. When they walk, it's not lumbering along like a bear at all. I mean, they outscale us on the mobility factor completely. They can move faster. They take longer steps. When people tell me, "Oh, you probably saw somebody come out there and probably walked in some Bigfoot shoes," and no, there is no way a human being can walk and have that much distance between each foot in the snow. There is no way in the world. I've got cousins that are very, very tall that could have been basketball players. They can't do it. It's just, it's a real head scratcher. I don't know. Forrest, have they been peeing on your car? Have they ever done that?
Not that I've noticed, no. I've not had any type of behavior around here. It's just, it just seems to have lately kind of ramped up. And like I said, Tom was literally on the phone the other night with me and we were just chatting. I mean, it wasn't like we were having a Bigfoot discussion or anything. When all of a sudden the alarm goes off, and the one thing that I did was Tom, I got my notebook out, and I've been keeping track of the times. And you know what I found out too? It was being consistent every frickin' night about the same time. And that was what was so peculiar. And the high strangeness now last night when we had what happened here, we had a horrible storm come through here. I had softball size hail. I've got a lot of damage and stuff here, and that's why I haven't been talking a whole lot. I got really upset. My property, I got a lot of damage, so that's something I didn't need. But anyway, as far as I can tell, my animals are safe, so that's all that matters. But I didn't have anything happen last night, so that didn't surprise me because I would have imagined that even they would have hunkered down with softball-sized hail. So,
and Forrest, if it had conked them on the head, it couldn't have happened to a nicer group of creatures.
This is true. I mean, I hope every one of them got conked on the head real good and hard.
My thoughts exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, these things, it's puzzling. I'm right there with you. I am puzzled. I mean, what are they? What is it? I'll just say it. Maybe it's the same one that's coming again and again. I don't know. But to be that nervy to come into town with people living all around me, I would have never in a million years thought. It's not very far for them to go. I mean, when you stop and think about how far a bobcat goes in its range or any other wild creature, I mean, they can travel for miles and miles on their territory. So, I've met with, over the years, I've tried to talk a few times with friends and individuals I know that live around, and it always comes back to this same thing. Well, you've got 5 acres. Why would a whole family of the things live on 5 acres? Well, it's not like they're tethered to the spot. I imagine it's that way with your property. They're coming and they're going, and they're comfortable there for some reason. They're frequenting that. So I don't know.
Yeah, and they're quite obvious. They're comfortable here, and I mean, and I don't know why, but I mean they've been here forever. I mean, it's not like it's something that's just started happening here in the last short period of time. I mean, my grandfather told me about them being here, and so, I mean, there's a long-standing history of them being here. So, I guess that, they just, I don't know, maybe they think this is their land and I'm the encroacher. I don't know. So, but I don't easily scare. So, although the other night I was getting and Tom can tell you I was getting a little upset. And then when the coyotes, that sounded like our, oh my gosh.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't sound like coyotes. I even heard them.
They didn't sound like coyotes. And on that was I remember what we were talking about. It was the the vibration that I was feeling, and then Jessica and we were Tom and I were talking about that, and I had even told Jessica when she was standing in here, and she felt it too. And I said, I wonder if we're getting zapped, and. And that was funny because we had gone out, finally, after all this, we'd gone outside, and she had her 45 in hand, and I had my 357 in hand, and our spotlights, and we're out there, and then I'm holding the phone, too, talking to Tom, and we came back, and we were, she was standing on the porch, I was sitting on the porch, and that's when I told Tom, and I said, and And I said, and Jessica, what did I tell you? I said, what did I say? Are we being, and I mean, I didn't even get the word zapped out of my mouth when the coyotes started. And it sounded, you know what? Didn't it sound like there were like 300 or 400 pound coyotes?
Oh, huge. Yeah. Yeah.
We were all going,
900-pound coyotes.
You know, so they sounded like coyotes, but then they didn't sound like coyotes. And it was just like, and it sounded like they were just across the street. And I mean, across the road. And we were just all kind of going, oh, okay, this is just too weird. And even Tom's hearing them. So, I mean,
you know, sometimes the ones out here, they sound like owls. And we have the, we have the barred owl. And it just does the who cooks for you, who cooks for you all call. And this is like, this is like, ooh. I mean, when they do it, they don't go do a good imitation, I'm telling you.
Well, I haven't heard, I don't have any 800-pound owls around here. I haven't heard any of those, but I mean, that really, that was spooky the other night. Even Tom thought so with the coyotes. So.
You got more nerve than I do, because we had policy, never go outside in the dark for anything. I mean, they could have moved a mobile home off of its you know what I'm saying? Well, they've hit it.
Yeah, my backyard back here is all lit up because I got 2 pole lights out there, so it is well lit. But and then the other end of the trailer, I have motion lights on. So the motion light didn't come on that night, but it was just it was a very peculiar situation. And since I've had the alarm on the door, you know, and I even said this to Tom, and I might have said it to you. Well, I think I did say it to you, Will. I think that what I was not aware is I think they've been testing that door for a long time, and what really got them was when that alarm went off. And and we actually, Jessica actually, when she installed those alarms that you guys sent me, and I just want to tell David, thank you, that she bumped that door, hip bumped it, and then actually hit it pretty hard. That doesn't set the alarm off. You actually have to turn and fiddle with the handle. So, yeah.
David.
Well, I don't know if you can hear her in the background. She said to just hip check it. You know, it does not set it off. You actually have to seriously hit the door to get the alarm to set off. But if you turn that handle just ever so slightly, jiggle it, oh my goodness.
David's going to be sending some more stuff to both you too, by the way.
I really appreciate. Now, I've got the ones that he sent me, the little alarms. I've got them on the front and back door of the house. We had problems with the front door, and we finally, when my brother was here last and I was telling him the problems I was having, he went ahead and closed the door, and we put locking hasps on it. And so I'm not even using that door. It's an older wooden door. I just, there is more. I'm not as afraid of them trying something with that door. It seems like it's the back door, because that's the darker part of the yard at the back, and the part that I use is at the back. But I found out that they were reaching through the railing or over the railing of the deck, and they were able to reach the doorknob and play with the door from just standing there next to the air conditioner. They don't even have to step up on the deck. They just reach over, and their arms are long enough, I guess. They're able to jiggle the doorknob, and that did set the alarm off back in February. They had the alarm come off, go off in the night. And, they went from looking in, since that happened, I'm kind of putting 2 and 2 together. Since that alarm went off, they've given up looking in the laundry room, because they used to stand next to the air conditioner, which the deck, the back door, and the air conditioner and the laundry room are all together on the back of the house. Well, they used to stand there and look in the laundry room window at night. And that really, which my mother became aware of, and that really scared her. That really freaked her out. So I just put heavy curtains and put another kind of blind, a blind she could close better on that part of the house. But it's sad to move into a house and, you know, people come over and say, wow, when are you going to finish your windows? When are you going to, you know, you could just, it's nice and sunny, you could just take that down and just open the blinds out and open the windows out and all of that. I was going to say before I forget, because I'm bad about hopscotching, and I realize that I am. But something Forrest said made me realize and remember to tell you this, that they have begun coming here at 9 o'clock at night. And I had told Will this, that they're changing their game or something, it seems like. That, and again, I say they. I just think it's one. I don't think there's a pack of Bigfoot coming into my little town, but I think one of them is making a visit when it comes through. For whatever reason, it's making sure that I'm okay. Here's the thing. This has happened before. This is freaky. Now, you know, tell me what you think of it, because I don't know what to think. But when they have been coming into the yard, when I believe, and mostly they make the deck stink like crazy, and I mean, you can tell from the smell in the morning when you open the door. That's pretty much the giveaway. But I started to say earlier too that they slapped the house, and the house is set up so that the bathroom is by the back door, and the off gas to that is a pipe that goes way up, clear up to the roof line, and it off gases the sewage right there. And they're slapping the house around that. And it seems to be there again an issue of scent, that they don't like they don't want competition, or they want to challenge that scent or something. But they've hit the house there often enough to break the vinyl off, and I've had to have that put back up there and repaired several times, because they hit it in the same spot. They can stand on the ground, reach up over the deck, and hit the wall of the house near the back door, up above where the toilet's at. So, like I said, I think that's from the off-gassing of it. And like I told Will, they're coming earlier. They're not waiting till 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning to come. This is making a visit, and I don't know why, at 9. It's good and dark at 9, and there's not a, you know, it's an old neighborhood. It's not terribly well lit. But they're changing their game, and I don't know, you know, who's to say why. I don't know if maybe they thought that going at 3 in the morning never panned out anything, that they're trying another time, or who's to say. But it's just freaky, because we're dealing with something that has a brain, and that, you know, at one time I thought they must be pretty stupid, pretty crude. These things are sharp. I don't have to tell you, they're sharp. They're a whole nother level. It's not like getting rid of rats or something. I mean, this is big enough to do some damage. Why it just doesn't break the door down and come in, I don't know. But I'm very grateful that it doesn't. But, I mean, obviously, messing with the door, it doesn't seem to take much to startle one or scare it. But that's pretty much the situation I'm in right now. I'm much better off. I'm in town where they can't get away with much, but
well, historically speaking, there have been many accounts, and Will knows this, of them actually coming into towns and being seen, and even in downtown areas. So I don't think that I don't think that they have a fear of that, maybe a hesitancy to show themselves very often, but I do know that they will come into town. I mean, people have seen them, window shopping in downtown areas. I know a gentleman that I had sold a horse to up in Arkansas that he was kind of teasing me when I got there. He said, "I know how you like Bigfoot." He said, "You should have been here, the day before, because I guess the night before or the 2 nights before it would have been that they'd actually had one walking downtown and looked like it was window shopping because it was looking in the windows of and this wasn't a big town. I mean, it was just a small town, so with a long main street and stuff like that, and it was just stargazing in the shops.
Well, TW, Chuck, what do you guys have?
Well, to me, fascinating and terrifying encounters that you've had, Carol, and my heart goes out for you for all the things that you've had to deal with. And, the best thing to do is always keep your head on a swivel, I guess. That's a tough situation that you're in. And my heart goes out to you for that. I mean, that's not a cool way to live at all.
I appreciate your thoughts, and I tell you what, I've got a friend that has been going to church. We live near a little community that is a smaller town, and it's got a lot more farm fields and wooded hills and stuff. It's very hilly area, and I began to hear through the grapevine from people that I know personally that had one woman was going to church one morning, and she didn't go for the Sunday school time. She said she went for later for the 10 o'clock, and she passed by a friend's field. He had the big round bales of hay, and she said she saw one rise up from behind the bale of hay. It was watching the highway, and it turned and walked back into the woods. She said she got a good look at it. It's also been, some of them have been into her trash as well, where she lives. It's a group situation where she has no control what other people are doing with their trash. And I told her that I felt that it was probably the trash that is bringing them in there. But, I can't explain all of it. I can't explain all of it as to why, and I was telling Will the other day, I said, I had at one time been, when I lived out on the 5 acres, you wouldn't even see 2 cars all day long. And there were people that have lived out in this area that have told me that they didn't even know about that area because they just move in their own little, in their own circles and, plow their own ground and whatever. But I've talked to people who have actually said to me, when I first got there and I got to know people, they said, "Have you ever seen anything strange?" And of course, I hadn't seen one yet. I said, "I know. I hear a lot of howls." And I had one neighbor there that she's now deceased. Her and her husband had a problem with these things. She called them the gorillas. She didn't know what they were. And I guess different ones she had tried to get help for it had laughed at her. And, she was very thin-skinned about the subject. As time goes on, I'm finding out more and more that there are other people in this area and I'd be interested to know how many other people in this area have had this problem.
I'll bet quite a few.
I know the group, and I've got a friend that lives over in another little town closer to Warrensburg, and I've gone over there with her family before. I'm telling you what, the group that my mom and I were headed over to her house early one evening, and a company had purchased a lot of land over in that area, and you talk about brushy draws. When we first got to know that family, and we would drive over there and we'd drive through that area, we both look at each other and go, this is really squatchy, because it looked like the kind of place that they would call home, because plenty of steep drainages and really, really rough, rocky, with a lot of old growth trees and just very brushy. And we went by there, when my mom was living. This was like 2019. We went by there, and I'm not making this up. There on the hillside, on Mom's side, on the driver's side, she happened to look up, because we noticed that trees had been cleared and trees were being felled. And there on a large log at the breast of the hill, there sat the black male and the red female. And my mom said she saw a younger one too, but I didn't look in time to see the little one. But they were all three sitting, just looking down on the road. They were sitting up high there, looking down on the road. And the description of what she saw matched what I saw. And believe me, we didn't pause. We just kept driving. We didn't want to stop and look at that. But I think that's probably the same group that we're having trouble out of. And then I've been in touch with a man that is out by the orchards, out by the river. And I got a call from a paramedic that told me that he had a few hair-raising stories when he was going to school there at Warrensburg. This is the worst thing I can think of to relate. They have what they call a body area that they train people with whenever they're going into forensic work, and they're being trained with that sort of thing. They occasionally have people who are, that don't have an identity, that are found dead. And they sometimes use bodies that are not claimed to do their forensics sciences with, and to take people into the field and to do study work. And this was part of this friend of mine. This was part of his study work. Was originally he intended to go into forensics. He said that they had some pretty weird stories out there, that they had hidden a body in the trunk of a car. Because, in that kind of work, your job is to learn what you can about the formation of larvae on a body. I don't know. I'm aware that I'm being gross here. I'm trying to be as nice about it as I know how. But they will put flesh out in different circumstances, sink it underwater, put it out in the open, or into the trunk of a car, maybe sink the car, maybe not. And this helps them to understand the decay that takes place, and it ends up helping with people that are bodies that are found. It helps them unravel the mystery of what happened to the person. So it's a very valuable, very important line of work. And I'm not trying to just make this a tawdry story to tell. But what he was saying is that sometimes they would come back and there wouldn't be any body to find. That they had some of his friends that were in the class with him had been there and had noted, you have to, everything that they do, they take meticulous notes and photographs and so forth in their study. And they're graded on their ability to ferret out what happened to the body and how it decayed, how long it had been there. They find out so much information from that. Well, they came back to get the body out of the trunk of the car where they had hidden it. And the trunk of the car was peeled back, and the body was missing. I told him that it sounded to me, since he related that there weren't any tool marks or anything like that, that the trunk had been peeled back. And of course they used junk cars for all of this sort of thing. I realized that too. But it just made me wonder if these things were hungry, and they were, God help me to even say this or think it, but if they were in a situation where they had the opportunity, where bodies were constantly being planted on a property, and this property, I know where it's located, it's extremely rugged, and no one lives around there. But it crossed my mind, oh my gosh, what if it got used to the taste of human flesh? And, you know, I don't allow my mind to go there very often, but it has crossed my mind, because now that I'm seeing these patterns, and I'm seeing that it's like it doesn't, at least one of them doesn't want to let go. And you would think that it would be wasting its time. I don't know what the payoff is. With a human being, when they do things, you could kind of think in the back of your mind, what is the payoff? You know, if this were a person that were stalking me, you would think to yourself, well, they got a mental illness, or you'd tick off the known causes, or what had I done or said to make this person angry, or whatever. In this case, I have no idea, other than just live my life and have the misfortune of moving onto a piece of property that was already occupied by these beings. I tell you what, it gives a lot of pause. It gives a lot to think about.
TW, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that what she was talking about is what's called a body form, and they actually have several of those all across the United States, and that's where your forensic anthropologists that are going to go in specifically into forensics, they do go out there, and they place bodies in all different types of situations, and a lot of it is bodies that well, actually most of them are actually donated. People actually donate their bodies to go out there and have them placed in those situations, and it's quite unique, but they're also usually they're not easily accessible. I mean, they have high fences around. They don't need people coming in there and messing with stuff. And they're usually guarded and everything. So, because schools use them, they're used for, this is for knowledge, people to gain knowledge on, and you were entirely correct, on larva formation and then how decomp progresses on bodies and the stages of decomp. So, they go out there on a daily basis and study those things so that they can see how the progression of decomp occurs on deceased individuals. So that's all I had to say on that, and that's extremely interesting. But I've never, and I will say something here, and I could be entirely out in left field here, but I have never bought into the idea of that animals like tigers, lions and bears and all that sort of stuff feed on humans because they just particularly have a liking for our taste. I could be entirely incorrect on that assumption, but I think that what they look at us as I think they see us as easy prey. I know people like to think that we're the top of the food chain, that we're,
well, we were, but we don't act that way anymore.
We don't, no. And I think that a lot of predators now, and we're not just talking about Bigfoot, but a lot of predators see us as easy prey.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, and I think that the idea of being an easy meal is pretty simple. I mean, these things always seem to have a presence on that property, whether it's one of them up in a tree or back in the brush. It seemed like there was usually one somewhere around, and almost like people watching a television or a play or something. It's almost like I was their entertainment. I tried to pass it off that, and of course I didn't have very much knowledge at the time, and I put myself in a lot of situations that were very dangerous and didn't realize the things I was doing that they were dangerous. Like I started to say before, I had myself one of those camp showers that you put the water in it, and it's a dark container, and then it's got a hose, and you shower yourself off in camp with it. I had an area near the backyard that was convenient, that I had a lot of trees, and I could, when I got through working, if I was dirty, I could shower myself off there. And now the whole idea that I was there alone, vulnerable like that, just freaks me out that I ever did that. At the time, I wasn't really afraid. I knew that something was around, but I mean, you have no idea how many there really are, and I completely buy into the idea that they're not alone very often. Like I said, there's not a lot there on 5 acres, obviously, but they found that a very convenient place to, apparently they still do. It's convenient. There's a place for them to hide. There's a huge, huge gully there where the water's redirected. It goes down my north border and across the back. That's not the end of my property. I have honestly never set foot beyond that gully very far back in there, because it was fenced and cross-fenced. And the first time I laid eyes on it, I couldn't believe it. It was pounded. The ground was pounded like completely flat, and hardly any vegetation growing there, and large trees all around. And it was like a whole different world back there. And I think that is the area that they maintain as their area. The front part.
Can I ask you a question, Carol?
Yeah,
do you know where Current River and Jack's Fork is?
Yes.
Well, my daughter, I have a daughter that actually lives in Missouri. I've never been to her ranch. They run 150 Blank Angus mama cows up there, and she just sent me. I sent that to you, Will and Tom, didn't I? That thing that she sent me from. They've been having sightings up at Current River and Jack's Fork, and she found that. And like I said, she's in Missouri too, so she sent that to me. And I thought that I'd sent it to Will and Tom. Maybe I didn't.
I don't know. Tom had to drop off. He's not feeling well, so and I don't recall seeing that.
Okay, well, I thought that I had sent it to you, but I will get that to you so you can look at it too. So, yeah.
We're gonna have to cut this short, guys. We are out of time. Carol, thanks so much. We really appreciate the updates. Everybody's been asking, so keep us posted.
Well, I thank you all. God bless you. I appreciate, in my darkest hours when I didn't know how this was going to end up. And I mean, I always trusted in the Lord and stuff, but I really appreciate having the help and the knowledge of what to do. It's pretty unnerving to look out your window at night and have a Bigfoot drinking out of your bird bath. I mean, it's just
we're gonna send you some more stuff. And on the positive note, with you spraying the bleach around, they did throw a tantrum, but you said they quit urinating on the car as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a positive step.
I was going to say, if they don't like it, I'm all for it.
Well, to get rid of them, that's what you want. You want them to not like being there. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks for sitting in and joining us.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.